Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I stand here today to present to you a piece of our treasured culture, and a piece of culture that will and hopefully remain to be one of the main centerpieces for Indonesian tourism and culture itself, and that is Batik. Inscribed in 2009 as a UNESCO World Heritage, Batik remains to be one of the most locally adored and sought after pieces of culture and history in Indonesia. But before we go in any further, let me introduce myself. I am Abdeellah Fahmi Nugraha, here to represent and present my speech about Batik, its history, and value in Java. And let me begin. So, Batik. What is Batik? Batik, by definition, is a wax-resistant dyeing technique founded in Indonesia. So, essentially meaning that we use wax, dyes, along with specialized tools to color and dye the fabric that we use, eventually resulting in some exotic colors and patterns representing the local cultures that make them. Usually, in East Java, Batik tends to be centered around flora, essentially meaning leaves, flowers, or other plants, even especially here in Jember, where Batik tends to take the form of tobacco and coffee. This helps to represent the local cultures that make them and show off their specialties too. So, even with that, Batik is also a rather interesting commercial commodity and economic thing, where, especially since the 20th century, Batik has flourished and become an extensive local commodity, especially in the past. But speaking of, let me discuss about the past of Batik. So, beginning in the Hindu-Buddha era, which is around the 6th century CE, Batik was first developed by a culmination of Hindu, Arabic, and Chinese traders arriving in Indonesia, delivering various textiles and dyes to kickstart the local economy and artistry. It soon developed into a cultural mishmash and a piece of Indonesian history and culture that is rather reminiscent of today. Moving on from that, it soon reached its peak during the ancient Majapahit nation, which spanned Indonesia from the 13th to the 15th century. There, Batik not only served as a commercial commodity, but also a medium for expression of the local culture, which was used in a sense that is both utilitarian and artistic, like being worn by nobles for daily duties or being a medium for self-expression. Beyond that, when the colonial era came about, the Europeans, newcomers, were both amazed and piqued by the local exotic colors and patterns that Batik produced, and soon imported it and exported it to various other nations in Europe, soon piquing their academic interest and scholarly interest as well. Unfortunately, after that, during World War II and the post-independence era, Batik soon experienced a collapse. But today, the art medium is experiencing a very good resurgence, kickstarted by local artisans and artists. Next, Batik not only has economic and cultural ties, but also it could also serve health. You see, most modern fashion typically employs artificial dyes, which are bad for your skin, leads to rashes, allergies, and even bad for the environment. However, most batik, as traditional batik especially, uses natural dyes, which are found all across Indonesia. And said dyes can also influence the colors used in batik, used to showcase their ecological and cultural diversity. Batik is also found as competitive as contemporary fashion, typically finding itself displayed and sold amongst other more modern and more hip looking fashion and clothes. However, even though batik is as competitive and as widespread as it still has challenges, mostly posed by other cultures integrating into Indonesia. We cannot let this happen. We cannot let batik fade away because it is an integral part of our culture in Indonesia. So, with that, I wish to help with the spreading of these videos, the spreading of awareness, and the spreading of the cultural diversity and beauty of batik itself. And with that, I will begin to end my presentation today. But don't forget to like, share, and subscribe the UPA UNEJ channel. And with that, I say, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.